All right, folks, time for us to get started. We are trying to start promptly at noon here. Um, as usual, if you have any questions, you can direct them to me, and I will jot them down and we'll ask Ted those questions when it's appropriate. Um, so, go ahead and give a virtual round of applause for Ted Lizotte. He's been calling for over 30 years. He's vice chair elect of Caller Lab, Caller Lab accredited calling coach recently. Owner and producer of Throwback Tunes, and he's a caller to literal rocket scientists. So nice round for Ted.
Oh, I was wondering what you were going to do there, Jeremy. I wasn't sure where you were going to rock and roll with this thing. Hey, happy Saturday, everybody. Glad to virtually see you, even though you're all muted. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I sit here in this little room and talk to myself all the time, and I'll try not to mute as we get going. So let me see. I got a PowerPoint presentation going on in the background here, so we'll get rid of that too. Looking at some of the attendances we got today, or the participants here, we've got a wide range of skill levels here, some icons in the industry, as well as some newer people I've seen in some caller schools that I know have been calling within the 5-year range or so forth. So bear with me on the presentation. It's going to have a little bit of everything, and I'm going to try and bring it down so that everybody can kind of follow along with what we're doing. So today's program is going to be working like this, hopefully. We're going to share this screen, which means we are going to get rid of that. And Jeremy is going to tell me in a second if you can see this screen. We all good?
Looks good.
All right, thanks. Okay, so again, today's topic is how to program a call. More or less, we're also talking about, you could almost take the word program and make it showcase a call, depending upon how you're going to take this information and if you decide to do anything. Unfortunately, for some of you, you're going to get into the thought process of how my mind works, and that may be a good or a bad thing. You can let me know at the end of the hour and see where we're at. So first thing we're going to take a look at, I thought that when you talk about programming a call, you really kind of have to figure out, because where you came from kind of makes you into what you are today, and where you get your philosophies from, how mom and dad raised you, so forth, so like that. So we're going to delve a little bit into a little bit of background here to figure out where we came from and what we're trying to do before we actually go through the process of doing it for one call. Now, I know some of you are rolling your eyes right now, so just calm down and we'll get to where we got to go. So anyways, a couple of philosophies from me. First of all, you got to realize that choreography is debatable. And if you don't know that by now, we've got a problem. It's like the US Constitution. How you read it and what you think it says is not necessarily what the other person says. I think we agree on 80% of the choreography, but we are constantly rewriting definitions, constantly looking at them. Is it legal from here? Is it not? So as we approach this and move forward with my programming of a call, you may not agree with some of the ways I look at it. I may not agree with yours, but realize it is debatable. And I think that's an awesome thing as we get to have a discussion over it. Similarly, flow, dance flow in particular, in my opinion, is a matter of opinion. I think that there's a number of things that a lot of people agree on. For example, a normal ocean wave with, say, right-handed boys on the end. If you ask the boys to run into the center and then said bend the line and the boys immediately had to back up, most of us would agree that that's pretty lousy flow, and we would not like to see you call that. However, you've kind of done another camp where, say, we talk about star through veer left versus star through veer right. Should you ever call that? You get a little bit more smatterings of opinions on whether it's a rock recover and so forth. I'm not getting into all of it, but again, some of the flow that I'm going to put out here is semi-debatable in your opinion, and so I've got some pretty heavy opinions of my own. There's certain things I don't call because I don't like it, and maybe you do. Don't take it personally. It can be a matter of opinion. I think we agree on most of it, but some of it is a little bit more touch and go. Part of this other philosophy that I'm going to go through with you is based on the fact that I call for tech squares, and I've been there since 1997, just short of a lifetime, it seems. I know that most people always come up to me and go, it must be great to call for these guys because they always dance so great and they dance at this high level all the time. As Jeremy said, literal rocket scientists. And they are much smarter than me, and I'm humbled every time by these guys. They dance up through challenge, way up through C4, farther than I understand, and that's great for them. But I think one of the things that gets lost is that's been told to me for 20 some odd years as I've been there. We don't have the same group of people that we have for the entire 20-year program. We are constantly churning new people through the program. We have some people that are there all the time. So besides having to teach them within the confines of a normal class environment, which for those of you who may not know, it's 4 tips a night. The first tip is review on what you did last week. The last tip is the review of what you did that day. So within 2 tips, about an hour, you learn 10 things about every 6 minutes. So we have to be very quick to get people from different formations, explain the call very succinctly. And when the class is done after 13 weeks, there is still a lot to learn and to be able to move people up to where the club wants to dance most of the time. So this kind of philosophy comes in play more or less in the summertime, where I can take a call and program it and move people along. And you'll see what I mean. But I needed to come up with a better system in order to maintain the structure and the level of the class. I put this in as a TED scale. You can insert any name you want there. Again, most of these things that you're going to see are my opinion, and I would debate them with you. And I've debated them with some of you that I've seen in the participants list already. And I think it's a great thing. You may not agree. But the point is, I want you to think about it more than you probably think about it today. So realize that it's there, and we'll talk about it later. And you've got my email address, and you can send me what you need to do. So basically, the overall calling philosophy here that I'm trying to get is it's designed to be debatable on purpose. It's designed to make it so that I'm going to explain to you exactly how I look at it and approach it and why I do it. But if you don't agree with it, that's fine. It's designed for you to make it your own, kind of take it away and do what you need to do. Most often than not, we think about the call analysis sheet, which, you know, other than I'm on a small camera, but, you know, it's there. You can find it on Caller Lab's website. And that tells you often where to do, what formations can you do the calls from, and what arrangements can you do the calls from, which are great, and everybody should know that. But what it doesn't tell you, and what most people don't think about, is when you should call the call and why you should call the call. And that's missing from the call analysis sheet. And this program here is more or less designed to try to get you to think of those 2 things. Lastly, I'm going to just put out there, like, what is normal? Normal is really what you do with your group all the time. So it's normal at Tech Squares to dance very difficult. It's just what we do all the time. But by the same token, if you took 8 people in a room that never danced before, squared them up on a sachet, what we would consider a sachet formation, with the girls on the left-hand side and the boys on the right, and taught them how to do everything that way, and that's all they ever know, that's normal. If you do something a certain way in your group all the time, that's normal. So it's also normal if your group has, because you have bad timing and you have bad flow and you call things that don't work and your dancers work with you, they consider that normal. So be careful, because what is it's quote unquote normal is not necessarily exactly the same across the board. One of the things that I try to do as a teacher is to try to teach enough so that when my dancers go out, they can survive whatever anybody else throws at them. And whenever they don't, they come back to me and go, so-and-so called X from this position. I've got a few people that are really good at it. And then they want my opinion. And I say, well, that stinks. That's why you couldn't do it. Or that's a good point. Let's take a look at it. And then we'll go through it and see what's going on. I am not afraid to tell my dancers when somebody goes out that whatever they got told to do is wrong and it's incorrect. And I teach my dancers how to know when a caller made a mistake and not them. because I think a lot of dancers walk out sometimes thinking it's them, and the reality is it's not. It's the caller, as we're going to see in just a second with something else that comes along. So what we're going to do here at this point in time is we're going to kind of put our flag in the ground and decide what we're going to talk about here. What we're going to do is we're going to get quick expectations about what are we trying to do, why, when, who, what, where, answer all those common questions for you. And then we're going to basically, towards the second half of this discussion, take one call and break it down for you as to how I think about them. So first thing we got on the books here is what? I'm not sure which one is supposed to be correct. Who, what, where, when. I didn't do it in a certain order. But anyways, what are we trying to do? And what we're trying to do here is, in theory, I'm trying to build you a staircase. When you're programming a call for me, I want you to start in a location that the dancer is comfortable, where you know what's going on, and you move forward. You should be starting at the bottom. And this is not just in a class. This is when you get into a dance or anywhere else you go. The first words out of your mouth should not be something so complex or so weird that they don't understand what you're doing. The idea is to move the dancers along with you. So we're going to talk about trying to understand difficulty in a call. And again, this is my opinion, and I'll explain it as we go, but we're trying to understand the difficulty of each call and how can we overcome it so that we can set up a logical progression of how to move from one part of this call to another. Now that involves formation and it involves arrangement, but it also involves when along the course of the time frame you call the call that you need to call. I could say the word call a couple more times. But that's how we're going to work with that. The next thing we're going to do is, you know, why am I doing it? Well, this is a pain point for me when I go out to dance. We have this journey thing that I think you want to work your way up with people. And what happens more often than not is instead of starting at A and working our way up somewhere up the ladder as we try to go, what we tend to do is callers have no plan. They kind of know where they want to go, or they are like I used to be when I first started. I'd see somebody would do this cool thing, and I'm like, oh, that's really neat. Let me do it. And then the dancers couldn't do it at all, right? It worked for whoever I researched it from, but then when I tried to say it, fall flat on its face. And it's the exact same word, so one would think it would work, right? But it doesn't. And more often than not, it doesn't work because we take our spot and we start somewhere down the bottom and we immediately jump up to somewhere in the top. We don't actually take the time to make it a journey for the dancer, to actually bring them along with us to get to the cool thing that we want to do, and do it in a way that we're not just jumping around, but we're literally moving them up the staircase with us. We're guiding them. Ultimately, I want the dancers to learn without realizing they're learning it. So you can also take that word programming, and in theory, I'm programming that dancer throughout the time that I'm calling to them. I'm making them learn what I want them to learn in a nice way by presenting things in a fashion that I think will work and naturally progress for them. So we'll take that. Next thing we've got is like, when should we use this method? Well, when is tough for me because I use it all the time, right? I use it everywhere I go. And always, I think you should start easy. You should stretch before a workout, right? You want to start down on the bottom somewhere. You've got to work their way up. You wouldn't, again, just walk in and say something really difficult. Get them warmed up, get them ready for the night, get them ready for the weekend, whatever it is, and work their way. And this pair guy can kind of go away. Should always try and build up the choreography as you're going, and never just come in flying high and trying to hurt people. Say goodbye to pair guy. Bye, guy. All right. And again, who or where, when do we apply this kind of philosophy? Again, for me, I do it everywhere. It doesn't matter where I am, whether it's my on my class night. I often get, particularly at my advanced nights, they're like, we studied the calls, but we never know which ones you're going to talk about. And they know within the first 30 to 45 seconds of the night, oh, this is what he's got in his toolbox today. It's whatever this is. And it doesn't matter which class I'm teaching or which dance I'm doing, you can probably tell within the first 30 seconds where my focus is for this particular tip or night or whatever. And sometimes it's just because somebody came up to me and asked, like, can you go over follow your neighbor? Yes, I can, because I have a logical progression I can follow for you. So this programming should be able to be utilized in a way where you can maneuver this not just for a class or for a tip, but you can work your way through an entire dance, whether it's multiple calls that you need to do in order to get to some wonderful little get out that you have, or some incredible singing call figure you want them to get to, rather than just making them walk through it 7 times. Get to the point where you've taught them the pieces of it as you go, to the point where they can then enjoy it and realize that they're dancing it. Whereas if you had done it right out the gate, they would never have gotten it. That makes them feel good. So spreading this out over a class, a tip, a dance, a weekend, or literally over a full dance season, depending upon what you're doing, is completely understandable, and it's well within the range once you understand how to take a call and move it up the food chain, if you will. So this is an example of how to do it, right? We're going to start to talk about how we're going to look at it. And this is not the call we're going to look at, but we'll give it in a small scale so that you get the general idea before we get on a bigger scale. Now, the thing is, when I think most people look at this as far as how to do it or where should I do it, most people tend to believe, well, this is like a load the boat, right? It's a hard call or an AC/DC and all the different places you can do crossfire from. And I should be working, that's what he means. So because I know, or I think that's what most of you think, we're going to start with a right and left through. And we're going to just start with this one here. This isn't the call we're doing today, but I'll give you just a general idea and take the first couple of steps with this particular call. And this is the philosophy here. The idea is the dancer has difficulties on this right and left through. And you need to know what they are, and you need to have understood what they are, or at least have an idea of why you think that is. So for example, let's take our dancers. We got green and purple. After they do their first walk by each other, tell me, and when I say tell me, don't tell me because you're all muted, you can't tell me. But in theory, what happens a lot, or often in some cases, is after that right pull by, where do those ladies go? They go running away from the guy like he's got the coronavirus. They just take off and they go in the other direction. And then the question is, what you should be asking yourself is why? Why do they do that? It can't be class after class all the time, everywhere we go, that in some class the girl turns the wrong way. The guy is constantly chasing her down when it's time to do her right and left through. And trying to understand that is part of being a caller in my aspect, so that you can figure that out. Now, there's going to be a bunch of reasons. I'll give you what I think is the reason. Up through this point, the right and left through is somewhere towards the top of the food chain as far as the basic calls go. We've been asking them to do right pull bys and left pull bys, and right pull bys and left pull bys. Right, a lot of right and left grands coming their way. Maybe a lot of ladies chains at this point in time, where they go in with a right hand and they go in a left hand. So I would challenge you in front of you right now, if you put out your right hand like you were doing a right and left through, and then put out your left hand. I don't know if you can see me in the little corner here, but what happens when I put out my right hand, my left shoulder turns back. And as soon as I put out my left hand, my right shoulder turns back, because my upper body automatically turns to the right, which turns away from the dancer. Because what in effect you're asking the girls to do on this call is do a right hand, walk straight by, wait in place, and then turn extremely to your left. The body flow on a right and left through stinks. And it stinks because of the way the call goes. But it gets better because the call right and left through allows the dancer enough time to be able to realize that the lady needs to overcompensate. And when she does that right pull by, she doesn't turn her body at all, because she knows she needs to go over to the left, even though on a right and left grand and everything else we've told her is to go the other way. So understanding that helps you when you explain it to people, so that hopefully you can avoid this when you first get going. And maybe we end up with something like this. And now this is a little GIF, so it's just going to disappear. They never even finished the courtesy turn, and honestly, I didn't have time to fix that problem. So again, how can we help them? Well, other than explaining to them why they're doing what they're doing, because some of them get frustrated and they think, well, that must be my fault. No, I've just trained you for the past 3 weeks to turn your body when you give a right pull by and you want to put your left hand out. I've trained you to turn your body to the right so that left hand comes out in front of you. Now I'm asking you to do something else, so it's kind of my fault. But is to try to get some formation, arrangement, and awareness in what you're doing. Maximize their ability for success. So for me, you need to set them up to win. And this is where I start to think about what can I do to program that right and left through the first couple of times we do it, besides getting up and showing them, besides having another square of dancers doing it, besides getting somebody else to be there. What else can I do to try to assist? So the first thing I'm going to do is have the right and left through end at home with partner. Whether you have everybody promenade halfway or just the heads or sides, doesn't matter. I want them to come into the middle. I want them to know their partner because they're comfortable with them, whether that's a good or bad thing. And I want them to end up in a squared set so I can tell them that beforehand so that they already have an idea of where they're going. That seems easy enough and it seems reasonable. And I also have the ability to put dancers that can assist each other together, particularly at the beginning. I can chain the ladies all over the place to get a strong dancer with a weak dancer so that the right and left through gets going. But then take it to the next step. Well, next time you show them right and left through, where do you want it to be? And here we start talking about arguing and deciding to build your levels. For me, the next place is a facing line. And the reason that I'm going to do it from facing line is because after you do the right pull by, there is nobody in front of you. Right? There's nobody there. All you have to do is search for the person you just had, turn around, and I can go lines up to the middle and back, and life is good. It's the next easiest way, in my mind, to try to take care of it and get it done. And I'm going to do that long before I ever get them to an 8-chain through. Because on an 8-chain through position, from there, if you're in the middle and you're walking to the outside, that's easy, same as a facing lines. There's nobody else in front of you. You've got nobody to pick from. But the guy that's walking in is going to do a right pull by, and now he's got a girl right in front of him, and he's got a girl next to him. And he's supposed to play with the girl next to him. But if she goes the wrong way, now he's got to remember to chase her down. But why would I chase this girl when I got one right in front of me that wants to be turned? I'll turn this one. So this kind of thinking is, this is how I'm setting it up, and these are the formations I'm putting them in when I teach the call for that reason. And that's how we're going to get into this in a bigger degree on the call that we're going to do today. So what I'm trying to see here, we're going to say to you, is that you also need to make sure you've got good resource material in order to figure out what you're doing. Besides talking to people, you should know your call definitions. And so you should know where they are at too. So I believe that this brings this up. Yes, it does. Look at this. So you've got your dance program list on the C.L.A.S.S website. CLLab.org, everybody, is where you can go. You can find your program lists down in here, figure out what you want to do. I'll give away a little bit of the secret. We're going to do something on the basic list because I don't want anybody to be thinking that this is a load the boat show or whatever. So I'm going to bring up the basic I'm going to do it right is what I'm going to do. How's this? Hold on. Go back over here. I don't want the list. I want the definitions. My bad. So we're going to bring up the basic definitions here. And we're going to look at this in just a minute. So this is the C.L.A.S.S definitions. When you do go out, you should be getting these on a regular basis. A couple of things about the definitions when you come out here. Double check your revised date. Make sure that matches what you've got, so that you know you have the latest and greatest. And for those that don't know, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of this thing, it'll tell you what it's updated more or less and when it's updated it. So if yours is from 2019, you're probably okay. If yours is from 2016, I got news for you. There's a new definition for double pass-through, touch a quarter, and trade by. Maybe you need to update what you got going on just to make sure you got what you need to have. Another good piece to this puzzle here is the standard applications document. I have some issues with this document. However, you can find it, and again, you can Google it, search it, and so forth. For those who have never seen it, it's right here. the problem I have with the standard document, or with this particular document, or things that I think you should be aware of with this document, is it was revised in 2008, which is 12 years ago. And standard is like normal. What was standard in 2008 is not necessarily standard as today. We as callers evolve, dancers evolve, we decide to do things differently, and we create new standards as we move along. But this document exists, and it's sure and heck not a bad way to start and at least confirm some of your thought process before you get out to what you got to do. So we've got that going on. And I know this is a little shout out to Mr. Clasper, who's on. I know he's listening, and he happens to be next Tuesday's presenter. This is Barry's baby, the Caller Lab Knowledge Base. You can get there with, I think it's callerlabknowledge.org. This is just a longer link to get there. You go to Caller Lab here, you go to 4 callers, and you can get to the knowledge base in and of itself. And he may actually bring some of this up next week or Tuesday if you log in Tuesday night at 8 to see him. But lots of good information in here just to browse around if you've got nothing to do. Don't look at MSN and Fox and CNN. It's just all upsetting all the way around depending on what you watch. Come in here and start to read some stuff and get better at what you're doing. I'm not going to utilize this today, but again, I'm just pointing that out as a little shout out for Barry. So at this point, now we're going to have to take a call to work with. I am going to take a sip of my Red Bull. I would suggest you take a sip of something and maybe just stretch a little bit, because we're about to get into this part 2 of this puppy. So hold on a second. All right, here we go. So at this point, we're going to take a look at one call to the point where you never want to hear this call again when I'm done with it. So here we go. Wheel Around is the choice of today. I like Wheel Around. I think it's a good call. I enjoy it. I use it a lot, and because of that, I try to take a look at it. Now I put this over here into this little slide for you, but ultimately we can get back over here and take a look at the definition, which is over here. I gotta remember where the heck I put everything. All right, so we've got the definitions in here. Wheel Around is call number 33. For those who are not aware, and if you ever do this online, you can come down here, find call 33, click on it, takes you right there. So we've got the command examples up the top, the dance action. I'm assuming everybody on the call knows Wheel Around, but let's just pretend for a second we don't. The idea here is that it's a 2-person call, and it doesn't matter who you have in your hand. It's not gender specific. Person on the left, as it says right here, as a unit turns around to the left 180 degrees. The person on the left side backs up, the person on the right side moves forward, and the pivot point is the handhold between the dancers. I think we're all comfortable with that. That's not a problem. For those of you who haven't seen it, the other piece to the puzzle that we're going to play with today is, hold on, this one. All right, so we're going to take a look through some stuff here with, this is Tamination Sequencer, so many thanks out to the Taminations people for this. We have some stuff over here that I need to move my picture so that I can get to. But we're going to try and take a look, and hopefully this works for us. So if you want to see the dance flow, oops, I'll get this. This is the tougher part, trying to make sure I keep up this and get it all right. Sounds better. So I wanted to point a couple things out with the flow here, because I don't have dancers to do it. This is the best I could do. So from here, the first part of this call, if you can see in the upper left, is the pass-through and a wheel around. So quite often I hear from people, or I've read online, and I've had this discussion with callers that I respect immensely, and I hear that they use pass-through and wheel around as a replacement for a right and left through. And I tell them it stinks. I don't like it. And unfortunately for you, you're all muted, so you get my opinion. And I'll explain why I think it stinks. Here's a pass through. We're going to do this slow. We're going to pass through, and this thing is really slow once it gets going. But anyways, my dancers are going to pass through, and at this point in time, they're going to wheel around. Now, a couple of things about this. Note that this stays the same. The handhold and the fulcrum of this turn is right here in the middle on each of these dancers, and it goes exactly without any other space in there. I think we're good with that. Again, taking a look at it one more time, they're going to pass through and they're going to start that turn. Last thing is just take a note of what happens to the boys in this particular case. You can look at the red square. He goes forward and then immediately backs up. Now, in most cases, like when I just said on an ocean wave call, having the boy run into the middle and then immediately back out, most people would agree that that's bad flow. Yet, we're fine to ask these people to pass through and then wheel around, asking whoever's on the left-hand side to immediately just stop in place, jam it into reverse, and go the other direction. I'm not a fan. I don't call it. I don't like it. I will show the dancers that dance it that way because somebody's going to call it to them, but I don't call it on a regular basis. And again, for those who say it's a right and left through equivalent, I've added that for you so that you can see the difference. Right here, the dancers are about to go into a right and left through, as you can see from the yellow line. And I will pause this along the way. They're going to do a right and left through. They're going to do the right pull by. And take a notice of here when they start to turn. Notice this line gets squished because even the computer program knows that though it is the same at the end of the day from a start and stop perspective, the dance action feels different. The girl, the fulcrum is different. It just feels different to the dancer. You can see how close that got in between this section and here as they moved. It's no longer equidistant and as they turn around. So in my mind, a right and left through flows and feels much different than a pass through and a wheel around or a pass through and a courtesy turn. So therefore, I don't do it. And there you go, that. So that's what the definitions here. So next I asked you to look at the standard application document. Oh, I had one more piece to the puzzle on this other thing. Let me move back over here. There's one more thing I wanted to say on the wheel around pass through thing. It's the, and excuse me, the term we use at work all the time is the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So in other words, if you're going to pass through and wheel around, why are you passing through and wheel arounding when you can do a right and left through? What is the benefit that you gain? Why is it an important way to show the call other than, to me, it's a gotcha? Particularly where wheel around is right here at call number 33. And in theory, you should have taught right and left through at call 22. You already have this dance action and they should already know it. So if they already know it, why are you bothering with a pass through and a wheel around? I think it's just, it makes no sense. So we're going to come down here to the standard applications. I've already looked this up for you. I'll save you some time. It's on page 23 and we'll take a look at this before we move along. So on page 23 that I can scroll to, there it is. This is here for those of you who can't see it. So the wheel around, the most common way the wheel around is done, according to the standard applications document, the first way is from the promenade position. The heads or sides, everybody's promenading, heads or sides, wheel around, and make lines. That's the most common way. Personally, that's the saddest thing I've ever seen. And the reason is because again, juice, to me, the juice, the squeeze. Ask yourself, why does this get called? More often than not, this gets called because the caller made a mistake. As he called something and he tried to figure out what he was doing, he realized he was out of order, out of sequence, whatever the problem was. So he said, everybody keep going, so-and-so wheel around, make a line, and now I'm going to try to fix it. And the sad part is that's the most common way that they see this call, at least in 2008. Now, there could be a couple of other ways to use the call from this position, but again, when I go to dances, more often than not, if they're telling me to wheel around, I know that they're out of order and they're trying to fix it. To me, just own it and let them get home and let them go, because this is why. You've already made the mistake and you already don't really know what the issue was in theory, or you would have, in theory, got it right the first time. So just let them get home, reevaluate, and go for it. So that's for me. And I made the mistake of not showing my dancers how to do this for a long time. And then they went to a dance and came back and asked me and said, the caller did this and we didn't know what to do. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, because I don't use it. Not that I'm never wrong, but I don't own it that way. I let them get home and I'm like, and fix it when you get there, or the ladies go across or whatever. And then I'm like, sorry about the guys, that was my bad. Let's move along. This just seems a waste of time for everybody. So going down to the second part, we've got this double pass through. Seems to be the next spot that it's done. And it'll tell you here, lines facing out, wheel and deal, centers wheel around to face the outside too. Okay, so we can leave this standard applications alone, and then we're going to start taking a look, and it's time to start to build the staircase for me. Now we're going to determine the order that I'm going to call this. Again, I hope you're sitting down. There's 34 parts to this. I'm just kidding, it's not 34 parts. There's a lot of parts here that we're going to go, and we're going to take a look at it in depth to build the staircase. And again, because I know that we have a number of people here that are in different experience levels, I'm going to try and show a lot of it on Taminations just so that you can kind of see it in case you can't see it in your mind. I don't want you to sit there and not follow along. So first thing that we're going to do, if I go to, for example, a dance in a place I haven't been before, and I like to use wheel around, and I don't know if their caller really drills it or does anything with it, what am I going to do? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is step one on my ladder is I'm going to call wheel around to an Alaman left. And this question right here is going to come up a lot. Why am I going to do it? Because it follows the standard applications. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's normal in theory. I haven't done anything weird. It very quickly repairs the square because I'm going to send them to their corner. And not a lot of extra help is needed. I'm going to call it. I'm going to say, look for the corner, and I'm going to say, wheel around. So there's a bunch of different ways to take a look at the call. And what we're going to do here is switch to a squared set for you. And then we're going to just give you a little taste of it. Now, the hard part with Taminations is that you can't really set them up very good. But what I am going to do for you is I'm going to switch number 1 to green and number 4 to red. This is my go-to couple over here, and I'm going to black out 2 and 3 because in theory I just want you to make sure you know where your corners and your primary and your secondary are. So my primary, my go-to couple is in green. G, go green. So we're here and red's over here. So from here, just taking a look at this, and we'll put it back to normal so we're not spending 14 days here. I had to set it up a little bit. I'm going to put, in this case, you could do many things to set it up, but right now I'm going to side ladies chain, and I'd like to hold that just a second to look at the flow of this to make sure you understand why I'm doing. I'm chaining the ladies across. I don't want, and somewhere in this particular turn right here, I'm going to ask the heads to lead. Now I could ask them to lead right, but think about it. At this point, if I ask them to lead right, as these guys are now moving forward in this direction, they're going to, in theory, go smack right into each other until this side couple needs to back up. So the flow for me is to have the heads lead to the right, lead to the left, because as they're moving in this way, when the other people are finished turning, that naturally becomes a nice way to go. Just pointing that out for the flow. So we're going to come in here, move them over, veer to the right, bend it, and do a right and left through. For the newer dancers that may not know, at this point in time, when you're looking at this formation, facing lines, and your primary couple is together in the upper left or the whichever, so they're on the end here, in this case the upper left or the upper right, and across from them is the gentleman, and only the gentleman, and you've got these three, for those of you who've been keeping an eye on Daryl's stuff that's been going online, or Jerry's relationships or any other part of this. From here, the call pass through, wheel and deal, and the centers wheel around is going to send you to corner. So we're going to pass through, wheel and deal, and the centers are going to wheel around, and everybody's right where they need to be. Again, if you want to look at the numbers, just so you know, you've got, I'll put the couple numbers in for you. Couple number 1's there. He's looking at number 4, lady. Life is sweet. We're all good to go. So that is my first place to do it. I'm going to run it twice. Right? I'm going to run it at least twice, and I'm going to make sure that not only is the heads the only one in this case, I think it was the sides in the middle that was wheeling around. I'm going to do it again so that the heads wheel around. And you watch the floor and see how they're doing. Did they get it? Were they great? Okay. Did they not get it? Do they need more help? Do I need to do it again later, or do I just leave it and move along because it's just not the night? The moon is full? Who knows? But I'm going to make sure that they've done it, and the Alaman left is the next place to do it. So I've got a couple of different things in here. You can move it. I'm going to skip it. You think you get the general idea. Once I do the wheel around to an Alaman left a couple of times so that I know that everybody's at least spinning the right way that I wanted to do, now I'm going to do a wheel and deal and a wheel around to a different call, because I don't want them to always think that they're going to be looking for their corner afterwards. Now, why? Again, this thing here shows up every slide. Why am I doing it this way? Because it still follows the standard application. It's the same familiarity with the routine that they're doing. It's maintained the same boy and girl arrangement. All I'm doing is I'm asking them now to move on and continue to do something different. So they may not need a lot of help at this point. Maybe turn around, face the ones behind you, and you've gone up one step. So again, any dancers, any normal lines facing out, wheel and deal, and the centers wheel around at this point in time. So again, for those of you who want to see an example of what we would do, we're going to come over here to, I'm on step 2. This one's a little longer, but it'll give you an idea, and I think it's good to show how we do things a little differently. So we're going to go back to a squared set for you and paste this one in, and bear with me as we walk through this particular one. So starting at the top, we did a lead right, veer left, bend the line, pass through, and a wheel and deal. Now take note at this point in time, it's the sides that are coming into the middle for this particular call. Then we're going to, after the wheel and deal and the wheel around, we're going to do-si-do, just for giggles, into a swing through, a boy run, trade the girls for flow, bend it, and then another pass through with a wheel and deal and the centers wheel around. Note that on this wheel around, it is not the same people. I don't want to drill just 4 people. I want to drill more than 4 people. So I'm moving everybody in through changing some things around. After this time we're going to touch a quarter instead of a do-si-do. We'll do a scoot back, oil run just for something to do, pass through, wheel and deal, and the centers wheel around. Again, new people are in the middle that you can't see. Then this time we'll do a swing through, but we won't just all run. We'll circulate it for something different. Boy run. We're going to bend it here, pass through, wheel and deal. Centers are going to wheel around again. Again, you've got, this is the original, the ones that I had at the beginning. It's a little different. We're going to go into just a get out. It doesn't matter, a flutter wheel with a right and left through and a half sachet. And at that point, I think it goes into a right and left grand, though it's down the bottom. Yeah, it goes into a right and left grand. And then promenade them home. So in that one sequence, I did 1, 2, 3, 4 different centers wheel around, bunch of different partners. At this point in time, if you're paying attention and you're on the floor and you know me, you know you're about to be wheeled around to death for the next 7 minutes, because this is what we're working. So we've got this thing and we're moving forward. At this point, I'm going to move on to step 3. Now, step 3 is where he starts to get off the rails. Some people might say pass through and wheel around, or maybe I should have already done it. And again, I don't like it. So from here, I'm going to go to a normal left-handed two-face line to a wheel around. There's a couple different ways to do it. I like one of them, but there's a couple different ways to get there. So again, why am I doing it this way? We'll take a look at it from here. The boy-girl arrangement doesn't change. So far, I've always had the boy backing up and the girl going forward, so that success should be there. It's very quick on the normalization as to what's happening and why. Helper words are going to fix this. I'm going to show it to you in just a second, but helper words, girls go forward and the girls connect, are going to fix this issue that I'm looking at it. And it ups the ante. For me, all the rest of the stuff so far has been 4 people in the middle wheeling around looking at the 4 people on the outside. Now, this two-face line has all 8 dancers doing the wheel around at the same time. So, again, it ups the ante for them. And I'm going to get some success here on it. I do this all the time, and I get success almost 100% of the time once I get here. So, normal handed two-face line. And this is the flow I like to use, is a Dixie style. There's a couple other flows that you could use. But let's take a look at the flow in and of itself. So we are on step 3, and we're going to go back to facing couples here. And we're going to just take a quick look at the flow in and of itself. So we're going to paste this in for you. All right, so the formation or the flow here is a right and left through. We're going to send her back Dixie style to a wave. Boys are going to trade in the middle. We're going to follow that up with a left swing through. And then I'm going to pause for a second. So as you can see from over here, the next things are going to be the girls run, wheel around, and girls, and then I might have the girls trade just for something to do. But I explain to them, if I'm having any difficulty at all, that the person who's running forward is going to be the person that goes forward on a wheel around. Why would I ask somebody to run around somebody else, physically stop, and then immediately jam it into reverse to go the other way? I said, I would be a bad caller to do that. You should trust me, trust that my flow is going to be there and work with me. So if you haven't done it before, here we go. Girls are going to run around the boys. Girls continue forward, wheel around. I trade the girls for just for flow. And at this point, you may notice that if I did a bend the line, I'm also exactly where I started this whole thing. This is a 0. So again, we're moving this back over for everybody else in the cheap seats way in the back, right and left through, Dixie style. Boys will trade in the center into a left swing through. Girls are going to run. We're going to wheel around, and I'm going to trade the girls, and then I could bend the line at this point. I could couple circulate them to go play with somebody else. I don't have to trade the girls if I don't want to, but I like it. Kind of keeps the group together and feels like they've done something. So again, trading the girls makes that a 0. 2 main choices from here. Like as I said, I can circulate just to change up some pairings if anybody's having some problems. So we're on step 3. By the way, you can also do this from a heads lead to the left, veer to the right, and wheel around, and it does a very similar situation. I'll get into that a little bit later, but that's another way to set this up. There's many ways to set it up. You could just have to explore them on your own. My next step is minor, incredibly minor. All I do is change that girls trade to a chain down the line. I want to go back to this really quick, and I say go back like I can actually control my computer here in any way, shape, or form. So in case after this girls wheel around, which is I think right here, if the girls wheel around and they weren't listening and they did a wheel and deal, which tends to happen on occasion, it's easy enough for me as a caller to say, and the girls connect, or the girls are connected with a right hand, and the girls do whatever. And if you're facing another couple, you may want to veer to the left so the girls connect. And then they're right back in the dance. Nobody gets lost, and we move right along and go from there. And the reason they get this is because they've already done wheel around 6 to 7 times before we even get to this. Because I've taught them without them knowing I've taught them. Just to make that point one last time. So the last thing I'm going to do here, or the next step in here, is again, I'm going to add a chain down the line. And to me, this is where it starts to become a module, and I'm not physically telling people what to do. It's the same boy-girl arrangement, the same normalization, and to me, the chain down the line closes it. If I'm talking to somebody and I'm like, and the girls connect, and the girls do this, and the girls do that, I'm physically telling them what to do rather than giving them a call that they know how to do and shutting up. Because when I just send it out that way, just slightly differently, that's so much more of a win for them, I think. Because now it's not the caller in theory telling you what to do, they know what to do. I just tell the calls, any calls. And once they know how to do it, any caller could do that. The helper words don't matter. I shouldn't have to do them constantly. I only want to do them to get them to a spot and then let them dance. So again, the whole thing from here now is going to be a right and left through, a Dixie style to a wave, boys trade, left swing through. Girls going to run around the boys. We're going to wheel around, and that chain down the line is going to take that and put it in and close that module for me. So we're going to keep moving along from here. Looking at the time, I'm going to try and maybe get away a couple of other things. So again, with that particular module, at this point, I have enough material to do multiple get outs, multiple singing call figures, and I could stop if I wanted to right here without making just minor changes to what I'm doing, right? So at this point, you know, what now? Well, it's party time. I'm also going to go back because I got a little too ahead of myself. Because I can do everything I need to do I really need to push anything any further than this? Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm good. Maybe the programming for me ends here. Or maybe I'm at a DVD festival, or maybe I'm at tech, or maybe I'm somewhere where the dancers are just nailing every single one of these and I want to move along. What would I do? I am so glad that you asked virtually without really asking. So the next thing I'm going to do is let's take a look. We'll go through a couple other spots here and we'll try to do them a little quicker. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in that same spot, and this time I'm going to do a half a wheel around. Why? Because it's technically the same module I just did. And I think when you get a fraction, it feels good. If the caller says half a wheel around, for those of you that aren't aware at this point, that is a bend the line. So basically, I did a left swing through, girls run, and then the half a wheel around is the same thing as if I said girls run and bend the line. But they hear half a wheel around, they pause for just a second, they get it, and they got a fraction, and it's good. And honestly, I think it's funny. So, you know, too bad. So it gets them to where they need to go at that point. The next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of up the ante, and I'm going to do a girls run into a Ferris wheel into a centers wheel around. Now it ups it in a little bit more. We go back and we visit what we originally did at the beginning. It's a very quick normalization. A left-handed uphill, if you will, Ferris wheel is a little bit more difficult. It's you don't see them as often, so it is optimal to an Alaman left, just because we did a lot of them from there with an Alaman left. So again, I think that was number 6. If you wanted to see that for as an example, it's an excellent spot to get out from half a chicken plucker for those of you that are new. So I'll put you back in a squared set, paste this in for you. And then we're going to go. So we're going to start with our chicken plucker, a square through 4, a right and left through. Everybody's going to pass through and trade by. At this point, you've hit your half a chicken plucker. I think we're all comfortable with that. Now we're going to do a slide through, right and left through, Dixie style to the wave. Boys are going to trade, left swing through, same exact module up through this point. Girls are going to run, but this time we're going to do a Ferris wheel, and the centers are going to wheel around, and we're going to hit that Alaman left right at that point in time. And we're all going to be squared up at home. So for my half a chicken plucker, this adding the Ferris wheel gets me where I need to go without another level of complexity. Step 7, I'm going to do it from an 8 chain through, and this is where I start to introduce the left touch a quarter, walk and dodge, wheel around. I see people use this all the time, and I like it. Again, this is 7. It's not right out the gate. You also, at some point in time, make sure that they know how to do things left-handed, and I would have probably walked a few of these through just to make sure. Again, why from this position? Well, same boy-girl arrangement, haven't changed anything. After the wheel around and up to the middle and back normalizes it very quickly so that they are all with me. It's harder for 2 reasons than these other ones. One, the boy doesn't normally dodge to the left. Normally, the boy's doing the walk, so this is a different step for the boy. And while he's trying to do that, normally the girl that's going to interact with him doesn't come from so far away over the other side of the square. So he's going to be uncomfortable. And if you don't know that, you need to. So usually having the girls go forward and take them by the hand works very well in order to get what you need to do. Again, for those of you that want to see it, boom, we're going to do from an 8 chain through. I think there it is. And from an 8 chain through, we are going to do, again, the left touch a quarter, walk and dodge, and a wheel around. And we're going to have lines facing when we're all done. Now, again, that left touch a quarter, that 8 chain is important because, again, this goes back to the arrangement that you're doing it from. You need to do it from an 8 chain through. You can do it from facing lines, right? You can do the call from here, particularly if I paste it in. If you do the call from here, it's going to be a left touch a quarter, a walk and dodge, and a wheel around. We're about to do a wheel around, but this formation with a wheel around is a tough formation. You got to be careful these people are playing correctly. You got to be careful that these boys actually went to the left instead of forward. There's a lot more complexity here very quickly, making it tough. So you don't do it from here, even though the call flows from there, at least right away. That would be up at step, 30 someplace, just putting it up there. Next thing I'm going to try is after I get them to do that left touch a quarter, walk and dodge and wheel around, I'm going to start including 2 different things. I'm going to go boy-girl arrangement, shows up on a previous step, right? We've already done this. It combines two items that they've already had. In other words, the fraction, so that makes them feel good. And the chain down the line again feels like a closer. So I've taken those pieces and I've added them together. I'm going to skip that one for the walk here. Next thing I've got here is a reverse flutter, sweep a quarter, centers wheel around from a facing line position. So I can do that for you in just a second. There it is from here. So from a facing lines, reset, pass through. From here, the call would be reverse flutter wheel, pick her up, bring her back over, sweep a quarter, and the centers are going to wheel around into the middle. You might want to tell the boys to be careful backing up. They don't do it very well, but it normalizes very quickly to a double pass through, and we get to go from there. Again, why am I doing it that way? It's a different call into a wheel around than we've been doing. So I switch it up to a sweep a quarter instead of the walking straight across or the Ferris wheel or the wheeling deal. So it's different, but that feels about the same. Again, tell the boys to be careful. Ending in a normal starting double pass through. And we are leaving the boy and girl arrangement alone still. And at this point, yes, I know what a lot of you are thinking, particularly the experienced caller. Right now, they're looking at me and they're going, why haven't you used same-sex wheel around yet? Right? Why haven't I put the boys together or the girls together and have them come into the middle and do a wheel and deal and the boys or the girls wheel around? It's a fair question. And my answer to that is, why should I? Right? I don't feel like I need to. And I've maintained the comfort zone at this point in time with the boy backing up and the girl going forward while having enough variety without adding enough difficulty that I haven't needed to go anywhere else up this staircase. I've started at A, I'm working my way up to Z, and I've gone through 9 steps, 8 steps at this point in time, and I'm only here. I still got all this way to go. And at this point in time, from A to J, these people are still doing what feels comfortable for them. I haven't even brought them out of their comfort zone. Maybe they don't like dancing. Boy, boy, girl, girl. I don't know. I don't know these people. But in all fairness, okay, maybe that's where we go next. We would set them up with a boy, boy, girl, girl, and pass through, and centers wheel around, whether it's the boys or the girls. At this point, I'm leaving the boy-girl arrangement for the first time, but my pass-through wheel and deal and whoever's in the middle wheel around is the exact same routine that they've done I don't know how many times at this point in time. Each couple has somebody that can help them. And it normalizes quickly with a touch, a quarter, a star through, something in front of them that goes. And again, based on time, I have this all so that you can see it, but I'm gonna kind of try and move it along for you so that you're not stuck here. I know you've all got sandwiches. I'm sure my wife has something delicious prepared for lunch. So, or in some cases in Australia, for you people that are up, you want to go to bed. So from here, the next thing I've got is, again, Dixie style. I like this one. Boys trade, boys run, wheel around, boys cross run to bend the line. Again, looking at why. I just practiced with the boys helping out the boys or the girls helping out the girls for assistance with 4 people out of whack doing it. Now I can take it and move it up a notch. I can have all the girls do the backing up and all the boys going forward. And it's the same position or the same flow that they've already done. I just have the boys going forward. And the boys connect is usually enough because they heard me say girls connect enough times that it isn't going to bother anybody. One call immediately normalizes the formation. So again, looking at it very quickly for you, I'll bring it down here and take a look over into terminations and defacing couples. I believe this one needs to be in. I don't know why, I guess I got a little extra here. So again, the flow is this. The Dixie style goes to the wave. Boys are going to trade in the middle for flow. Boys are going to run, and then the boys are going to go forward on that wheel around. And the girls would back up. But again, boys connect, get you there fairly quickly. You could have the boys trade. I don't particularly care for the boys to trade. I like to ask the boys to cross run because then I can immediately bend the line and I'm normal. The boys cross run fixes it. And it's a nice little flow module. Again, I'll play it for you real quick here so that you can see it. the way it flows and it kind of moves you from side to side. It's a nice weaving action. It's nobody going in one direction the entire time. Moves around, sings a little bit. It's an excellent flow module, but I can't do it right when I walk in the door unless I know the people. I got to get them here. So we're going to get them there and do that. Number 12, I can Ferris wheel and have the centers reverse wheel around. This one is only if you can get them to trust the flow. If your walk-in dodges were working well and everything was going from here, you need them to understand that the person that is on the edge needs to go forward. So again, from here, I'm not just going to call it willy-nilly. It's again looking for the Alaman left. I've already practiced the boys going forward. Now they're going the other direction, but they've already know how to go forward. Normal boy-girl position is back. Alaman left gives them somebody to shoot for, so they know where they're headed. And I introduce reverse wheel around for the first time. Usually the helping words, forward again, boys, go with the flow, is enough to help them get what they need to do and get that done. So again, if you want to see it in a quick fashion here, I can throw this over for you. I think this is a squared set. Paste it in, and it works like this. We're going to have the head square through 2. We're going to walk into a right and left through, which is a half a chicken plucker. Veer to the left, Ferris wheel, and the centers reverse wheel around. Boy goes forward, and I'm right back to the Alaman left. And you know, they don't do it very often, if ever. And if you can get them to that point, they're going to feel very successful with what they're doing. Last one I got here for you is the same idea. The touch a quarter, walk and dodge, reverse wheel around. Again, once you can get the boys to understand, or the dancers to understand, that whoever goes forward keeps going forward and to trust you, this is a nice flow. Because again, this is the 3rd time I've practiced the boys going forward. It's still a normal boy-girl position, so that revisits that theme. And then I can usually reemphasize the reverse wheel around with forward boys as they're doing what they need to do. First time I'm going to do the call, it's going to be up to the middle and back. Maybe the next time I'll put in a reverse flutter or something of that nature. But again, if you'd like to see it, just so that you can see it happen, for the newer dancers in here, I did it from, I forget where I said I didn't do it from, 8-chain. But let's go with facing couples for now, just so it's faster and you can see it. So from here, we're going to touch a quarter, walk and dodge, reverse wheel around, the boy goes forward. And then again, in this case, a reverse flutter wheel is nice flow. It brings them right back in. And the hard part here is 2-2. The reverse flutters, reverse wheel around is tough, which is why I worked it someplace else. And most of the time, the only other time you hear reverse in basic or mainstream, the word flutter wheel comes across as the next thing. So step 14. I'm just kidding. I know, I know most of you at this time are like, seriously, how far is this guy going to go? I got things to do. No, I'm trying to make sure that you know, and I get some of you are like, if I hear any more of this, my head's going to explode. I get it. So I'm trying to make a point here that at this point in time, you need to be able to take it, and maybe not to the degree that I just did, because you're never maybe going to have the need to take it to the degree that I just did. But what I want you to do is to understand why you're doing what you're doing and when you're doing it. Not just this call can be done from here, this call can be done in this arrangement. It's why you're doing it and when you're doing it that is almost more important than the other two. So in conclusion, your plan is going to equal the dancer's success. The dancers and my dancers are going to do what you just saw, and they're not going to know why they're doing it. The idea is to take something that's difficult and make it as easy as possible. And these minor steps, as you move them along, is going to be enough that it keeps them doing what they need to do without even knowing it. You're there to teach and educate. I'm sounding like, not preach and eradicate. I want you to be able to, every dance, every time I pick up the mic, I'm wondering what I can teach my dancers. And it doesn't matter whether they want to be taught or not. I want them to learn something along the way. And now one last bit of thing here. Anybody can break down a floor. Anybody. I can give the microphone to my son who has no idea how to call, and he can break down a floor. Breaking down a floor is easy. Getting everybody to dance and do something more difficult than they think they can do is not. And lifting the dancers up by slowly helping them and guiding them up in a way that gives them the maximum chance for success is how you program the call. You want to get them from that point A to point Z. You want them to work slowly up there. And if you can get that done by doing a lot of stuff with programming, I think you're going to find that your dancers are more successful and you'll be a lot happier. So in that, I'm going to leave you alone. And I'm basically going to say it's time for Q&A. And I appreciate everybody being here for this. So Jeremy, you got anything for me?
All right, well, first of all, let's give Ted a nice round of applause.
Go round of applause.
Okay.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed it.
So there weren't too many questions, actually. You went over everything in excruciating detail. But I think the question of when you introduced reverse wheel around, as soon as that question was posted, you were talking about it, so good job. A lot of people were going, hey, he went through that really quick. Can you go back? No, we're not going to go back, but we are going to post these videos at some point in the future, so you can go back and watch it as many times as you like. Some people want to see your PowerPoint. The only question that I really had was actually from myself, and it was spurred by Brian Clark. When would you do wheel around 1 3/8?
When I get in Vancouver and I know that I can put Brian in front of me, I'll let him do that. No, I think I'm good.
So again, thank you all for attending. I think this is the largest crowd we've had so far. Topped out about 122. So great job, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks again, guys. Good luck. Email me if you need something. Bye-bye.